Remember when Raw came out and some of us were kind of like, wait, am I seeing something that's not there? Or is this really a queer movie? Well, good news. The director, Julia Ducournau, just made a movie called Titane, and in it, it's confirmed that Justine, the main character from Raw, is indeed queer, and not only that, but we now have an amazing movie to contrast to Raw in terms of representations of gender and queerness in general. So let's do just that. Welcome to Vanessa Jupiter's Sitting Room. Today we are talking about Julia Ducournau and gender. I would usually avoid wanting to compare two movies just because they share a director, but the evolution from Raw to Titane is at points so obvious that I would personally feel weird talking about the one without talking about the other. This evolution is most obvious to me when comparing the football scene from Raw to the party scene from Titane. The tilt of the camera, the homoeroticism, the gaze. The two scenes are so similar that the difference in setting and context are all the more striking. Raw features a gay man playing football, a stereotypically masculine activity, and Titane features the hyper-masculine firefighters dancing, not necessarily a feminine coded activity, but decidedly not hypermasculine. The evolution from homoerotic, aggressive football to homoerotic, tender dancing is a microcosm of the jump in representation of gender from Raw to Titane. While watching Titane, I kept on thinking about the extreme tenderness present between these two main masculine figures. And before I had the time to say anything about that, my friend I went with actually said they were so tender. Then I went to Letterboxd and this word kept on coming over and over again. Tenderness. It's even in the trailer. It's a consensus then. Titane is a movie with a lot of tenderness in it. That's not something I ever heard anyone say about Raw. Someone please tell me who allowed a scene where someone throws up a strand of hair to go on for as long as it does. Was it really necessary, Raw? So much of the movie centers around horrible hazing rituals. I'm on edge all the way through. Watching the movie sometimes feels like a test of endurance, of how much I can take of witnessing this veterinary student being tormented by her fellow students. I hate it. And that's of course Raw's biggest strength. It's, well, raw, difficult, undigestible, not a second to relax. In contrast, Titane is not an easy movie by any stretch, but much of the tension comes from seeing these two men who are going through a lot of emotional turmoil, learning to love each other and learning to find some comfort in each other. So we, the audience, get to experience this newfound comfort alongside them. Wait, did I say that Raw features no moments of ease? Scratch that. There are two scenes that are decidedly not uncomfortable. I'll get to the second one in a second, but the first one is, of course, the peeing standing up scene. And yes, that is the one moment of the movie that I would call tender. The scene where two girls do something that we've all been told only boys and men can do. Of all the through lines from one movie to the other, this is the one that intrigues me the most. All tenderness seems to come from this nebulous concept of masculinity. I'm sober. This is not an alcoholic beer. Ah! Is this what men do? Let me know in the comments. I'm a cannibal freak, so I guess that most people would expect my favorite scene from Raw to be, you know, or maybe, or even, but Surprise! My actual favorite scene from Raw is this one. What makes this scene so good is that we just spent 1 hour seeing one meaning of the word raw on screen. Reality as difficult, intense, uncomfortable. And then we are hit with this scene, which, yeah, it's just as raw as everything else in the movie. But now what we're looking at is teenage raw self-expression of gentleness, sweetness, even tenderness seems too soft a word to describe this scene. It's just a really beautiful private moment. My friend that I went to watch Titane with, we watched Raw a couple of days later. We recorded ourselves having a long discussion about both movies. Here's a little bit of us talking about this mirror scene. That is a very average thing to do. That is an unremarkable thing to do.
Is it?
I think so.
I've never made out with myself in the mirror. Does that mean that I'm not average, or
but maybe that's.
Have you ever?
Yes, I've done it multiple times when I was a teenager. Clearly, this is where we are not seeing the same thing in the movie, right? But we were talking about the parallels with Titane as well, and you mentioned that you consider this scene where Adrian dances on top of the truck, as being a similar scene to that, and I find that a really a very insightful comment.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah,
sometimes I have very insightful comments. Yeah, because but also on the truck, we know that the whole fucking space, that all these men who asked her to go up there are totally cringing, feeling very awkward, and Adrian does not seem to notice at all. Adrian is not in any way, so it doesn't even feel like Adrian is doing it I'm doing it despite your nasty looks right now. No. They seem fully just in themselves in that moment and just embracing that. It looks like they get a little bit high on that sort of masculine adorate. They put them on the fire truck, and it's yeah, Adrian, and they seem intoxicated by it, and then he starts dancing. Yeah, it feels very much like a private moment, even though for Adrian it was in a room full of people.
Yeah, but and I find that fascinating.
Did you see what Adrian does on the truck?
Yeah,
I could see myself do that though.
Yeah,
and I've done it.
Yeah, there you go. If you're interested in seeing the entire conversation or more of the conversation, come back next week where I will have posted more of it with more insights into Raw and Titane. Let us enjoy your sitting room. Subscribe, like, share. Look at me incorporating the call to actions right in the middle of the video. Am I doing it super well this time, YouTube? What's up with Alexia, Adrian, or how I'll call them A, the protagonist of Titane? There's a lot there. The first one-on-one interaction we see A have as an adult culminates in a moment where they hurt someone else's breast. I think it's fair to say that A has some type of body dysmorphia that leads them to attack parts of other people's bodies that remind them of their own. A spends much of the movie binding not only their breasts but also their pregnant belly. Their immediate reaction upon discovering their pregnancy is actually to insert the stick that they usually use to kill people into their pregnant belly in order to get rid of the fetus. There are multiple scenes where the marks caused by the binding are extremely heavy. And of course, they scratch their own pregnant belly aggressively, constantly, to the point where they make a hole in it. This is yet another element reprised from Raw, where in Raw, Justine's scratching was a representation of blossoming sexuality and cannibalism. Here, the scratching is an extreme representation of body dysmorphia. There's a scene where the main character is dressed as Adrian and then puts on a bright yellow dress on top of their male clothes and then protrudes their own belly to look at themselves as a pregnant woman. This scene is striking because this is obviously role play. Women can be as masculine as they want. Of course, I know. But this is not how the scene reads at all. This is a male pregnancy. I'd say one of the most interesting aspects of the film is seeing A come to terms with this masculine identity and learning what that means for them. All the while looking at their body with a pregnant belly and growing to accept that pregnancy as part of their body. To some extent, by the end of the movie, the body dysmorphia that A felt seems to be mostly soothed. It's as if most of that dysmorphia came from social interactions. Once they started existing as a man and being perceived as such by a father figure, it was much easier for them to accept their own body. I really love this movie. The way that their body and their gender interact with each other is really one of the most unique representations of gender I've seen. I've said it before, one of my favorite ways to look at gender and gender roles is to look at motherhood and fatherhood, because those are two roles that are so clearly defined along gender lines and that have such a huge host of associations to them that they're very useful to try to understand gender. The first and most striking similarity between Ra and Titane in terms of representations of parenthood is that in both of them, fathers are passive but mostly present, and mothers are assertive but quite absent. Not completely absent, mind you. Sometimes they'll show up and give an order and then go away. In Ra, the father is especially passive, allowing his wife to eat parts of his body. And then in Titane... okay. The sexual tension between A and Adrian's father makes the discussion about fatherhood in the context of their relationship kind of messy, because I want to say that there's a lot of fatherly love there that's gentle and beautiful. But the truth is that a lot of the scenes that I'm referring to also have a lot of sexual tension between the two. In the end of the movie, A kisses Adrian's father, who's completely taken aback and stops the kiss, which leads me to believe that he wasn't aware of the sexual tension between the two, let alone want to act on it. While it's difficult for me to see many of the scenes as not being something other than fatherly love, I think it's fair to say that Adrian's father as a character had no sexual intentions towards A, and was trying to be tender in a fatherly manner. So, as much as I understand that it's very messy to see the relationship between A and Adrian's father as exclusively a father-son relationship, from here on out, I'll do that anyway. Sponsor me, Bex! I find the simple fact that he displays that level of physical affection quite interesting in itself. And then there's the fact that he ends the movie holding a baby. And of course, how to forget, one of the very first things we see Adrian's father do is cry. Masculinity isn't so much subverted as it is birthed anew. Adrian's father is very clearly characterized as a very manly man at many points. He is a fireman, and the way that he interacts with his colleagues and subordinates is more often than not with the coolness of cishet men who are a little afraid of being seen as anything deviant. This isn't a utopian universe where there's no toxicity to masculinity, but all the worst parts of it all come outside of the fire squad. There's that dude who harasses A after their dance performance in the beginning of the movie, and when they want to run away from Adrian's father at some point, they run into this group of noisy teenage boys who have an energy that seems awfully real to me. Teenage boys are scary, and they are scary enough to make A want to go back to the comfort of Adrian's father, who can display a lot of tenderness and care even within that hypermasculine space. Adrian's mother, while an interesting representation of motherhood simply based on the fact that she's the coldest of the two parents, still seems very invested in the traditionally feminine role of the caretaker. When she sees A's pregnant belly, she urges them to take care of Adrian's father, as if that were the responsibility of the woman in the family. Adrian's father rejects that completely, stating, "I am the one who takes care of you, not the opposite." While in an early scene, Adrian's father lies his head on A's belly as if seeking affection and protection from the child figure, by the end of the movie, the roles have been reversed. Adrian's father has indeed taken care of A. Adrian's father's words that he would be the one to take care of A, not the opposite, were far from empty, with A fully trusting in his protection by the end of the story. Here's where the representation of fatherhood in Titane shines even more. We clearly see that for a parent to take care of a child, there's no need to use force or aggression. A is inarguably being taken care of by Adrian's father, and they're being given exactly what they need: tenderness, love, and physical affection. Not only does Titane question what taking care of someone looks like, it subversively gives that role to the father. Ra and Titane are both deeply interested in what it means to be masculine and or feminine in private and what it means in public. It's all about the gaze. Justine's moment of hyper girlhood comes when she's by herself. A's moment of feminine seduction comes when they are being gazed upon. Adrian's father is the hyper-masculine fireman, even when there's no one there to see. Men perform a masculinity that falls fast into homoeroticism at parties. A putting on feminine clothes is always a performance. Mothers give orders. Fathers give tenderness. Girls will be girls. They harass each other, eat their partners, and pee standing up. Boys will be boys. They take care of each other, learn to love, and give birth.